what I try to remember and hold on to day to day to keep myself feeling connected to humanity during a pretty crazy time. It's just these fundamentals that every human wants to be seen and heard. Every human has
valued.
Vulnerabilities. Every human wants, to be valued and to belong and to love and be loved. And they have fears, things that scare them. If you just remember that about everyone, even the angriest, most irritated arsehole, that's true for them. And it's true for the kindest, sweetest person you know.
Welcome to Raw with Jay, the support we needed but never received. Welcome to Raw with Jay. Today we have someone so special, Nic Gibson, who I met at a startup event, and what she is building is absolutely incredible. I have been so inspired by what she does, who she is as a person. We had a meeting after that event and she told me a little bit about her story, where she's come from, and it is just mind-blowing that she started so young, and from where she's gone to where she is now is amazing. So welcome, Nic Gibson.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.
Now, who are you at your core? So not what you do so much. I want to know more about who you are as a person, because you have lived so many different lives in such a short space of time, and your journey is incredible.
Thank you. At my core, I think I am what we all are, which is, I think every human has infinite capacity. But I think throughout my whole life, I've definitely had what would be classified as entrepreneurial traits. I think like a propensity for risk-taking, that was always a desire for adventure was always the inability to think inside any kind of box. That used to drive me crazy in traditional education. I just didn't understand the framework and the limitation that I felt was constantly presented to me as options. Like my creative mind was always thinking outside of that. And I think a real desire for freedom, and not just freedom, but liberation. For me, my life is about becoming liberated. And I guess that's more of a spiritual journey than it is a business journey. But for whatever reason, I've found a beautiful path that entrepreneurship allows me to pursue very kind of spiritual growth. And that's how I relate to it.
What does liberation mean to you?
Liberation of the soul, I think, is to integrate everything as love. And to me, I was just running this challenge for my community, and we were talking about this, that I think a lot of people characterize love as these like only positive feelings, and this kind of romanticized idea of love. And my journey's really taught me that love is the capacity to accept everything as you, to no longer have a separation between whether that's you and people that you have previously thought were different to you, or really the world at large. I was writing the other day, and one of the things I wrote was, I think we need less people who are interested in changing the world, and we need more people interested in becoming one with the world, especially now, because we're living in a time that's just volatile and polarized, and everyone is identifying with their beliefs more than they're identifying with the fundamentals of our humanity. And that's not a good direction.
That was exactly what's coming up in my head as well. You say to choose love over fear. Now, that's much easier said than done.
Sure.
And can you explain what you mean by that?
Yep. So we can talk about it maybe first through a conceptual or kind of philosophical lens, and then we can talk about what's really going on more in a sort of psychobiological lens, like a physiological nervous system lens, because that's really important too. It's difficult. The reason people find it difficult to be loving, which requires openness, it requires spaciousness, is because most of our nervous systems are in a state of dysregulation. Our sympathetic and our parasympathetic nervous systems are totally incoherent and out of balance. And from that place, love is not something that you can will yourself into through mindset. It's a presence. It's a state of being that you cannot fake. And when you are faking it, it's felt, and people will experience you as insincere. Whereas when you're embodied and you're integrated, people will likely feel very calm around you, very safe, present, able to share things maybe that they wouldn't share with other people. And it's really not something that you can think your way into. It's an embodied place that you attain through entrainment. But on a conceptual level, fear could be characterized as separation, as judgment, as limitation, narrowness in thinking. So on a relational level, fear-based choice would likely be a choice to create more distance, and a love-based choice would be a choice to create more connection. And love, in a broader sense, is altruism, creativity, spaciousness in your mind and your body. And when you really think about that in a global leadership context, how many leaders do we really see that model this? You know, I shared a story in my last book, which is called Legacy Disorder, about an advisor that I asked early on in my journey within Truth, why would you support what I'm building and why would you support me as a leader? And she had really senior positions, very high level government positions in the US. And the question really came from, I feel like I'm sort of the little guy. Why would you choose to support me when you have worked with some of the leaders that you've worked with? And I think her answer to this question really characterized this exact point. She said, I've worked with so many leaders, especially political leaders, that their work is to minimize their vulnerability as much as possible. It's to conceal their vulnerability as much as they possibly can, because to have that vulnerability not concealed, they perceive that as a reduction of their power. And the way that you lead is the opposite of that. You lead through the welcoming and the expression of vulnerability. And it's crazy now because I've worked in tech long enough just to see how true her point really was. But I remember at the time, being early on in my journey in the tech space, which is a very volatile space, it's very competitive. I just remember thinking, wow, there are leaders in the world whose whole mindset and goal is to be as least vulnerable as possible. And it just blew me away. That was people's kind of frame of what it meant to be powerful.
Because they think that's power and control. Yeah. And that dynamic, I see it play out in relationships. I see it play out with children and parents, and just having that constant control over somebody that's around them.
Yeah.
And it's, I think, something that you've said before is the more compassion that you have for yourself, the more compassion you can have for those around you, and realize that it's their stuff.
Yep.
And you get to a point of going, as soon as something's thrown at you, you can look at it and go, actually, that's not me. That's got nothing to do with me. This is a reflection on you and how you feel about yourself and how you see the world. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's a hard journey to get to that. And there is so much ego around. There's so many people that have that power dynamic, and coming into this evolved world though, nobody wants somebody else to have power over them. And so what's happening is this fight constantly going, well, I don't want them to have power over me, and I don't want them to have power over me. And you see it in the startup world, and it's so hard. Yeah. The challenges that come with that dynamic. And I'm sure that's been really challenging for you over time. I just wanted to take a couple of steps back just so people know exactly who you are.
Sure.
How did you start Love Out Loud? So where did that come from, and how old were you? I remember that you told me that you were doing it from the back of your van when you were so young. Tell me about Love Out Loud, first of all, because that really started your journey, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, in the very beginning, like Love Out Loud as a principle of life, 100%, but Love Out Loud eventually became a book that I wrote. At 25, I started writing that book. And I had no idea what was going to happen, when I launched that book. Just my assessment now, looking back, is it really was a very honest reflection of what I had observed in my work to that point, which I'll explain in just a minute. But because of the vulnerability I shared in that book, it reached people in a way that...
At 25?
Yeah, but my journey really began sort of at 18. I founded a nonprofit, and that came after my experience with the mental health care system. But it wasn't, I think a lot of people go through a health crisis and they come out the other side and they're like, I need to do something to advocate for this condition. My condition was anorexia. Anorexia has a very high mortality rate. It's a 40% mortality rate, which a lot of people don't know. That's a crazy high mortality rate.
It's a really high number.
It's 32 times more likely to result in death than chronic depression, just to give some insight into that condition. So I had that drive because I felt like there wasn't enough awareness or understanding of what that mental health challenge is. Like, the diagnosis means anorexia nervosa means a loss of appetite, and back then it was really seen as this physical problem, like you're not hungry, and obviously that's not what anorexia is. It's a mental health challenge that's driven by feeling out of control and wanting to assert control in your life, and there's a deep vulnerability in that I think is so confronting to people. And going through that experience, yes, I wanted to advocate for people who were suffering from eating disorders because I felt that was needed. But what was made aware to me at that time was more our general societal relationship with vulnerability, because I was confronted with it every day. The difference between going through something like anorexia and going through, say, an anxiety disorder or a depressive episode or disorder that is maybe equally debilitating but more invisible for those that don't know how to see. Anorexia is very physically obvious. People are watching you lose weight at a very rapid rate to a point where it's obvious that there's something wrong with your health. And as I entered that kind of critical stage of the condition, what I started to realize and notice was people did not know how to have a conversation with me.
No, people are very scared of feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you're wearing that, of course, I was still in there. Like, no one is their condition. You asked who I was at the core, whether you're going through anorexia or you're going through a different health crisis, cancer, a challenging time, a divorce, the loss of someone you love. Like, these are not who you are at the core. These are experiences that you have that are deeply challenging and painful. But who you are is eternal. It's ever present. There's a humanity inside of you that transcends all of that. And what I started to reflect on, keep in mind that I was at theatre school, so my whole world was really about the understanding of the human condition. So it was this like perfect setup for me to really be asking these very kind of deep questions about society, how we're existing, the foundations of how we built the Western world.
18.
16 at that time.
These are big questions for a 16-year-old.
Yeah, they were, and really went down that rabbit hole of thought around what is modernism, what is postmodernism, how did the world organize itself after World War II, what were the values in which our society was built upon, and just recognizing that we do not understand, as many adults, how to have difficult conversations that require vulnerability.
Oof.
And looking at the conflict, yes, in my life, like not having adults that I knew loved me very deeply be able to have those very difficult conversations with me because of what it brought up for them. But having that dressed in, you were saying it before, and it doesn't come from a bad place, but dressed up in that projection of, what if I say the wrong thing and hurt this other person, where actually what you need to heal in that is your discomfort with going there with someone you love. Like, it has nothing actually to do with the other person. You convince yourself it does. But
it's about them and
it's
how
about
they're
you,
feeling.
right? And then when you put that aside a child or beside vulnerable populations, that actually those populations need those that have the adulthood or the capacity to guide and to lead and to support. We basically don't have any support structures, but it's very confusing in some ways in the context of the Western world, because it looks like we have so much. It looks like we have the best healthcare systems, and like even for me, I was blessed in that I had, once that intervention happened, I had really great doctors. But what I realized in that is there's only so much that could be achieved inside the walls of a doctor's office or a psychologist's office. The healing that really needed to happen was how I was connecting with the people that mattered most to me, my family, my friends, my community. And I didn't see any systems that were supporting healing that. And I think a lot of people still, to this day, in different ways, you were talking about loneliness before, those structures have not been built. Those systems have not been built. And because it's intangible for so many people, how do you talk about loneliness in the context of a system? How do you talk about emotional connection and love and compassion in the context of a system? And so when I founded that nonprofit, that was really my beginning endeavor to figure out how we really change this at a systems level. And I was doing community systems work at that time, which then, long story short, led me to advocacy, which led me to work as and serve as a commissioner for mental health. And it was on the back of serving 3 terms as a very young commissioner. I was 21 in that role.
What an achievement, Nic. I mean, that's 21. Like, you've gone through some big things. It's like, we're at 21 here.
Yeah, it was a lot of responsibility at that age. My other kind of colleagues were easily in their 50s or 60s. So
were they connected though? Did you feel that they were connected? This is why we call it Raw with Jay. Like, this is the raw conversations, because this is the like, especially when I separated, exactly what you're talking about. People just disconnect from you. They're like, she's broken. I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to walk away. And it's heartbreaking, because you need those people during those times. I've suffered from anorexia as well. I understand people you need to bring them in, not pull them away. Bring them in.
Yeah.
And I always say, I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday. If you don't know what to say, just be honest about that.
Yeah, exactly.
Just literally say, I'm not good with big feelings. Like, I'm not good with the big stuff, but I am. Can we play basketball? Can we get ice cream? Can I just watch a movie with you? Can I just hold you?
Yeah.
That's what people need in these big moments in their life, rather than having that additional layer of abandonment, which is really hard.
Yeah, especially parents, right? I think that there's so many layers to this conversation, because, of course, like, every adult is entitled to make the decisions they need to make for themselves, even if that means, like, letting go of someone that's really suffering that they love very deeply. But I do think that the irony in this is, the more we heal this as a society, the less symptoms of this disconnection that I think we'll experience, like people suffering from eating disorders, people suffering from depression and anxiety. Like, that there is a deeper causation in the first place that's coming from disconnection, a need for control, or whatever it is that is showing us there are pillars missing from Maslow's hierarchy. Yes, we might have in the Western world food and water, and we should all be deeply grateful for that, because there's plenty of people that don't, even in the West. But the social structures are not there. We don't feel, for the most part, a sense of safety and belonging and togetherness. And most of us now are living inside an echo chamber that's making it somewhat impossible to connect to someone that has a different belief. And when you look at how that's evolved over time, there's always been collective influences. But if you go back to, when you were growing up, and in some ways even a 20, probably 7-year-old, they remember a time where the collective influence was maybe what was on TV. So at least there was something collectively that we could relate to. And the echo chamber of social media, which began in about 2014, has now personalized that algorithm. And so no one is being influenced by the same things. No one...
Just don't know what rabbit hole they're going down.
Yeah, exactly.
They're just on their phone. They just grab their phone and you have no idea where they're landing.
Yeah, exactly. And that's getting reinforced. And what's come from that is even more extreme version of what I experienced as a 16-year-old going through that condition, is the level of cognitive dissonance that people are experiencing when they're confronted with something that's different to the thing that's influencing them. But that's happening now at a hyper-personalized level, which is severely problematic, because where do we find connection anymore?
I know. It's like this giant mess. Can you just explain what cognitive dissonance is? Because I know there's a lot of people that probably haven't heard that word before. It's a hard one to explain, I know, but if you could...
No, there's a sort of a simple enough way of understanding cognitive dissonance. So you have a series of belief systems. A belief system could be, I don't believe that pigs can fly, right? So it's a silly one, but if there was a pig flying in front of me, basically that would throw me into cognitive dissonance, because I'm being confronted with an idea that challenges something that I thought to be true. If you take that in any kind of context, maybe as a thought experiment, think about a belief that you hold really strongly, and then you might also be able to reflect on a time where that belief was challenged. So even in a relationship, if we want to take it to that level, it could be like, this person will never leave me, this person will never betray me, and then they do something that causes you to feel left or betrayed. You get thrown into cognitive dissonance, and it's a really uncomfortable place for a human mind to be, because we anchor our reality based on these belief systems. And you only really have two choices, and there's a choice that 99% of people will likely take, but there's another choice that's, I think, not talked about enough. So the more common choice is you will reject what's happening in front of you because you do not have the capacity to expand your belief system. You don't have the cognitive capacity, and you maybe don't even have the nervous system capacity, because it takes you emotionally stretching to actually welcome that belief. And humans have a lot of pride, which is the ego that you talk about. We don't like being wrong, and expanding is an admission that the belief I held to be true actually isn't true. And so a lot of us go around the world and we reject anything that is challenging those belief systems. But when I'm working with people, I try to get them to see there is a second way, which is to be open and that's a more expansive way. And there's no shame in believing something and then not believing something. We're allowed to grow. We're allowed to change our minds. I think actually in relationships, part of a toxicity that I think many people experience inside relationships is we don't let the people we love change. We say to people when someone is maybe changing their ideas on, I don't know.
Say religion, because
religion's a great one. Or marriage, right? Like you maybe first started dating someone and they really believed in marriage because of a religious sort of idea, and they fall in love and they love you and they want to be with you for as long as they can see. But maybe the idea of what marriage is just becomes less appealing, or they look deeper into the origins of that and they start to believe different things. And then the partner's like, but that's not what you told me you believed.
And they hold on to that thought that they originally said 10 years ago.
Exactly. And then it becomes, you must not love me. You mustn't want to commit to
stories.
me. And that could totally not be true at all. That person might actually love you even more, and that's freed them beyond what they've previously thought to be true. And all of a sudden you have a relationship where both parties are holding each other back, not allowing each other to grow. There's a whole series of stories and projection that's in the way of that connection. And if we become aware of the nature of how the human mind works, it wants security, and that's not a bad thing. We need levels of security to survive and to be safe, but we can master ourselves enough to keep an open mind and to know that changing our beliefs is not the end of the world. Just let's be a bit more curious about it, less rigid. And what you will experience isn't just a gift to the people that you love and care about and the stranger that you're having a chat with at the local coffee shop. It's actually a gift to yourself because your world opens up.
It's taken me such a long time to get here, and I haven't always got it right. But I'm able to see things from different people's perspective. I mean, you take politics, and I'm not getting into politics, but you look at things, and I will read things from both sides. So I will understand why somebody thinks something and why another person thinks. And it's having that compassion for that particular person to say, hey, could you tell me a little bit more about why you think that way, rather than, nope, you don't do what I want and that's it. You know, I think that as humans, we can have those conversations of you think what you think and I think what I think, and that's okay. Yeah. Or the evolution that if you actually do have a conversation with someone, they might actually change your mind about something, or you might have a moment where you're like, oh, okay, I get why you think that, or I get why that's good. Or I think that it's a really beautiful space to be in, where you can allow people to be who they are and still have a level of friendship for them, whether that's a relationship, whether that's a family dynamic. Like, accepting people wholeheartedly for who they are is so important, and it's so hard for people to do.
Yeah. And there's two levels to that, right? The first level, which is important to get to, is a good threshold, is, okay, you believe something, I believe something different, and that's okay. If you want to go to another level of connection, most people who are arguing opposing sides of a view actually feel exactly the same. And if you can go to that next level, which is to stretch yourself to understand that person on the right side of politics that I'm fighting with because I'm on the left side of politics, or vice versa, they likely want what's best for their country.
Yes.
They likely want to feel heard and seen. They likely believe that's the path to greater freedoms, whatever. But if you can look to the emotional experience and you can actually connect on the fact that you both want the same things, but the path you believe you need to take in order to get there looks different, then at least there's this kind of deeper place of connection. And if you want to go really general, which is what I try to remember and hold on to day to day to keep myself feeling connected to humanity during a pretty crazy time, it's just these fundamentals that every human wants to be seen and heard. Every human has valued, vulnerabilities. Every human wants to be valued and to belong and to love and be loved, and they have fears, things that scare them. If you just remember that about everyone, even the angriest, most irritated asshole, that's true for them. And it's true for the kindest, sweetest person you know. I find it does get easier to be like, okay, I can't control, there's a million reasons why someone's going to behave the way that they behave. And behavior is a very complex thing. It's a whole kind of 2-hour podcast in itself. But there's actually something a lot deeper that's someone's core that isn't necessarily their behavior. And they deserve compassion just as much as anyone else.
This is what I'm teaching my son, and he's 11 years old.
Amazing.
If he has a teacher at school or they're shaming him or whatever, I'm like, maybe they're having a bad day. Maybe something else is going on inside them. Is it a pattern? Is it happening all the time? Was it just a once-off? And I think that's a really beautiful space that we can get to. Like, I will now, even in many different dynamics, think of things like, why could they be acting like that? What could be going on for them? My parents' generation, especially my dad, it comes out as anger. Anger is fear.
Yeah.
He's fearful. Why is he fearful? Okay, stuff's going on. We recently, as a family, were really close to the bushfires in Victoria, and we were only a kilometre away, and it was 4 days of just like looking at our phones, and it was so scary. And like at the same point, we're very lucky because nothing happened to us.
Yeah.
But they were just like, oh, whatever happened, don't worry about it. And I actually said, I feel like the field gene, you guys are losing an emotional lens there.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are. They just don't have that capacity to go deep into themselves and say, I'm actually scared. I'm fearful. And so it comes out as anger. It comes out as rage. It comes out as aggression or whatever it might be. I wave to people. I wave to people that do rage. Just hi, or I give them a hug. It's, whoa, something so big is happening to them. Or if someone is road rage, think of that particular person like they have somebody having a baby at a hospital, or they need to get somewhere. Or if you think of them from a different lens, it makes you have compassion for them rather than you're yelling at me, I'm yelling at you, we're doing this, and then it's just an explosion.
Yeah.
If we
and
can
it improves your life. I think,
exactly.
I think that's someone might be hearing this thinking that, but why should I do that for someone else? And, people really need to understand is you're doing it for you just as much. Like you will be a happier, more balanced, coherent human being if you take on some of these changes.
And the other thing I say is, if they're angry with you, imagine how angry they are with themselves. Like if that's the outward conversation that they're having, what does that mean internally for them?
Imagine being them for 24 hours.
Imagine that, having that anger inside and not having anything to get it out. Ooh. Yeah. So Love Out Loud, can you just tell me about Love Out Loud? What is it? Because you started this beautiful company when you were so young. Like, what a journey through anorexia from your perspective of not being able to have that level of support to say, hey, this is what people need. They need connection. They need somebody to show up for them. How did Love Out Loud for you start? Yeah,
so there was essentially 7 years where I was growing my nonprofit. It's called the Rogan Rouge Foundation, and I was doing deep work with communities. Long story short, I created a system that I called emotional infrastructure. I kind of laugh at that because I'm literally now building emotional infrastructure. But I was introducing that.
Little steps.
Exactly.
They all come together.
It's just like a more accessible, intelligent way of solving that same problem that I've always been trying to solve. But that looked like working with, at first, school communities, and then actually that grew to broader communities. I was doing a lot of work in regional, rural communities, where me and my then team of facilitators would go and run workshops with the students, with the parents, with the teachers, with the service providers. Like, these communities usually only a couple thousand people, so it was easy enough to get the whole community engaged. And we would help them basically bridge, a lot of the time, just beyond blame. Like, you'd ask teachers what's wrong with the kids, and the teachers would say it's the parents' fault, and the parents would say it's the teacher's fault, and the kids would say it's the police officer's fault. It was just just all blame. And the work through that nonprofit was very much centered around giving them an emotional vocabulary and a safe space to actually come together and reconcile those differences. And process was just active listening. It was very simple. So my team and I would listen without any imposition or suggestion, and would do that with every subgroup in the community. And then at the end of the trip, which would usually be a week or two, we would relay what we had heard, and then we would facilitate a conversation. And 9 times out of 10, they would all realize we want the same things.
Oh, this is so beautiful.
It was amazing. It was some of the most beautiful, rewarding, I really gave my young adult years to that work. Like, I was doing that for years of my life living in the middle of the desert, living either in my van, or sometimes I'd have to stay in mining communities because that was the only accommodation. It was a really radical kind of experience. I grew up between London and Australia. I spent a lot of time in Europe and big cities.
How many schools have you gone to?
Yeah, I went to 8 schools.
Oof.
That was a stark contrast to the way that I'd grown up, and very, very different to what other people my age at that time were doing. They were getting into social media and this and that, and I had a totally different experience.
Drinking.
Yeah, totally different experience. And that advocacy, like I mentioned, led me to my work with the government as a commissioner. And when my tenure came to a close and I was 25, I wrote a book called Love Out Loud. And it was really my attempt, because I'd experienced so many things. Like, I'd worked with tens of thousands of people in these communities and heard so many stories. And there were these 9 key principles that I write about in the book that were just consistent in every person. And they were a journey. So we won't go into that because it's a big conversation.
Can you just say the 9 principles?
Yeah. Imagine these principles as a journey that lead into each other. So the first is belief. We need to believe that change is possible. In order
and it
to
can
even
be small
start.
change. It can be family change, even in a family household.
Yeah, or even your belief might be, I'm not worthy of connection, right? You've got to believe that could be different in order to even start that change journey. Then the second level, and we would get really into this in the community work, is honesty. And the kind of principle of that stage is we can't heal what we're not willing to reveal. This is also very common in addiction recovery. Like, you have to have a space where you are completely honest and you stop running from the truth. Because, that's a big conversation, but unless you're in the reality and the frequency of truth, healing cannot occur. And it starts with being honest with yourself. I think a lot of people spend their entire life running away from something they've done that they're ashamed about, or that they're afraid to confront, traumas that have happened. The third is acceptance. Once you reveal that truth, you've got to do the work, which is, I now know because of the research we've done with my current company, In Truth, which is a biotech that has done a lot of research into emotion via the nervous system. The nervous system needs to be able to expand to accept that truth so that you're not in a conflict with yourself anymore. And being seen by others in that and accepted by others in that is a very powerful way to accelerate. I'm a very big advocate for kind of group work and group healing for that exact reason.
See and hearing and valuing everyone.
Totally. You think about like mums groups, even in the parenting world, if that was facilitated with intention, there's such a power actually that could come from that, because you understand each other's experience. You know what it's like.
Talking about nappies the whole time, because that's what everyone else is talking about.
Yeah, and to be acknowledged in that. When you can really reach that true place of acceptance, you'll go through the 4th stage, which is a death, but it's more like a metaphorical death. It's a death of an identity, and
that part of you.
Yeah. And that's something that we haven't learnt to do well as a society. We think death is the final moments of life, and actually, if you look at tribal wisdom and the way tribes constructed themselves, they all went through multiple initiations throughout their life, where during the coming of age, the child died and became an adult, not in the literal sense, but they evolved into a man or a woman that had different responsibilities to that of a child. For a woman, that might be then, losing her virginity, getting married, becoming a parent, becoming a mother, becoming an elder, and men have their own equivalents. But these are really, when you look at how tribes conducted themselves through tribal law, moments in time that were marked as initiations. And there was an important psychological shift that happened during those initiations that we are missing deeply as a world. Just to name a few, a boy, as a child boy, believes that they are the center of the universe and that everything revolves around them.
I have an 11-year-old, yep, I get it.
That's not their fault. That is the psychology of a boy. When he becomes a man, the shift that's meant to happen is the recognition that I'm a part of the universe and it's my responsibility to contribute to the universe and to have a sense of nobility and honor and to know his place in that broader ecosystem. So selfishness to a service. And there's a whole list of these kinds of examples, but to name some really kind of concrete ones for a boy as well, and understanding that death is real, that you can't drive 300 kilometers an hour on a highway with no consequences. So it's this understanding that morality is a real thing and that you have to have responsibility in that you stop seeking a relationship with a mother and you start seeking a relationship with the feminine. But just think about that, how many men in our world still are boys and vice versa. They're looking for a mother in their partners. They're believing that the universe centers around them and they don't feel a sense of responsibility to serve the community beyond them.
Is that why men always think that their needs need to be met? And this is such a big conversation because it's what has been playing out on my socials at the moment, but it's like there needs to be needs met for the masculine, say the masculine, and the feminine shouldn't get their needs met. I don't know. It's like this dance now where everyone's needs need to be met. What about if we just have one core belief and say, hey, that's one core belief for me, like mine is stability. After everything I've had in my life, please just be stable. And if that need's not met for me, I can't move forward. It's really hard for me to not have that level of stability within me. And all I need is that little one thing to be met. And I'll meet every other need. And that's where it's really challenging is like, where do we have that boundary around our needs being met and having compassion for another human?
Yeah.
That's a big question.
Yeah. It's like let's move through the chain. And I think some of those points of clarity will hopefully reveal themselves, right?
You're going to heal me today.
At least maybe illuminate where healing can happen. But I would say if there was a man, for example, that really was holding himself in the world as all my needs should be met and that's all I can see and it's very one-dimensional, looking at it through this lens of initiation, I think it'd be a fair assessment to say that perhaps he hasn't been initiated from boyhood to manhood. And it's not always just like black and white in its totality. There can be parts of us, right? Parts of the boy that have become a man, but parts of the man that is still a boy, parts of the woman that is still a girl, and vice versa. But the challenge with this phase of death, which is chapter 4 in Love Out Loud, is back in tribal times, there were key initiations. The boy would go and do a coming of age ceremony. He would be ostracized from the community for a period of time and he would have to go and hunt a tiger and be confronted with his own mortality. And when he successfully did that initiation, he would return to the tribe and they would welcome him as a new man. Sometimes they would give him a new name. We have nothing like that in today's world. We have children facilitating children, initiation for, I think, actually, Gen Zs will maybe change this. I don't know. But when you look at drinking statistics, they drink a lot less than previous generations.
They do.
But for the millennials, like our initiation still was drugs, alcohol, porn, kids facilitating kids. There was no adult kind of mentorship. There was no one that was showing us how to be a well-adjusted man or woman and what that meant.
Human. And
so for women, some of those psychological shifts that are really important are, as a girl, you only you only care for others or you only care for yourself. And the maturation of a woman is I know how to balance care. So I know how to have that internal stability. I'm not going to overgive and I'm not going to undergive or people please, all those kinds of things. That's really important. And same thing, like wanting a relationship with a father versus wanting a relationship with the masculine is very different. Psychological changes that need to happen, otherwise you just end up chasing that, and that's what it would commonly be termed daddy issues. But
it's a chase.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to reconcile what's not reconciled in your child psyche. And then if you add all the crazy statistics around the amount of people that really do go through childhood trauma, even like sexual abuse, you asked about boundaries before, it gets really complicated because you're basically in a situation where you were never given the chance to, boundaries should not be something that you have to really aggressively assert.
I have learnt boundaries in the last 5 years of my life, if not less.
Right.
I didn't even know what a boundary was before.
Yeah, so if you had the right kind of space of development, what it would naturally be is you know what's right for you, what's wrong for you. I'm not saying there's not a place to need to aggressively assert your boundaries. I've also been there because I've had to learn how to recompensate for the lack of natural boundaries, which is actually more a felt sense of I know what's right for me, what's wrong for me. I have a sharp intuition around what relationships to pursue, what relationships to not pursue, what to allow, what to not allow. And it's not making the other person wrong, it's just being able to hold yourself with your own conviction. Much more harmony will start to occur when you've achieved that. But the challenge is we have a lot of people in our world that never had the right developmental space for that to be natural.
And it's really uncomfortable.
Yes.
It's extremely uncomfortable when you've always been a people pleaser and you say, that doesn't feel right for me, or I need to move away from that, or that's not within my boundaries. And sometimes you can really love somebody or a situation or something, and you know that you have to move away from it because it's not in line with who you are, and it's tough and it's a lonely journey. We've just spoken about loneliness. Like, we're living in a really lonely world.
We associate that the reason it can feel so tough is because we associate it with the loss of love, because when you haven't learned those mechanisms naturally in your childhood, the fear is, because usually the pattern's created if you had a parent, either one of your parents, usually the mother though, that made their needs more important than yours. You learn to the need of the parent. And as a child, you shouldn't have to do that. That's not a normal developmental process, but it has happened to many people. And so when that plays out in adulthood, you're trying to take your power back. So then you have to try to assert that boundary, right? But the discomfort is, but what if I'm then left? What if I'm not loved? What if, because you weren't given the reinforcement that you can have needs and that's fine and you're going to be loved just as much, right? So we're having to reparent ourselves when we come to that later in life. And that's a beautiful thing.
It's beautiful, but it's hard.
But it's hard,
when you insert boundaries, the amount of people that can walk out of your life.
And on the other side of that, you'll have people that
I agree.
Respect
Come
you.
in.
Yeah.
It is. It's a transition, and it's a really tough transition, you know. It can be a really lonely place, but you also know your worth and you know what you deserve. And it is a transitional period. Like, I grew up reading Brené Brown, so vulnerability and shame, like, they were just my language. That's my language. And then you're vulnerable with other people and like, whoa, you're too much. And it's such a transitional thing. It's, this is who I am, but you're not ready for that. And so that's maybe a different layer of friendship, and it's a confusing time.
Yeah.
Now, we don't have heaps of time, so tell me about the last values, and then we want to go into in truth, because that is our biggest thing for you, is what you're building and how you've got to that point. It's mind-blowing what you've done.
Thank you. So then we have purpose after death. So that's the gift that comes out of allowing yourself to die. Then creativity. So from living from your purpose, your creative channels will be open. And then acknowledgement. So you finally get to a place where you really can look it all in the eye. So that pain and that difficulty that you're speaking to through the right stages of integration, eventually you'll just be able to acknowledge it for what it is. And it's not good or bad. It's not wrong or right. It's just It is. And that's beautiful. And when you can really get to that place of acknowledgement, which is stage 7, there's a gratitude that will start to naturally emerge. And it's such a beautiful place to reach, because it's really like that feeling or that experience that people talk about, maybe you've even experienced it yourself, of everything has happened exactly as it was meant to bring me to where I am. And
when you're in it, it's hell.
Yeah, it's hell, but you will get there.
You do.
There's hope in that. And then 9.
Trust.
Exactly. From the overflow of gratitude, because it is such an abundant place to exist, is service. It's like the last thing left to do in that is to want to give. And this is a cycle that will repeat, I've noticed, over and over again through periods of growth. But I do believe that all of it should lead to this very genuine and authentic desire to serve the world around us and to be a part of a broader ecosystem. And that is inherently connection. Like, when you think about just the biggest transformation in the context of connection and transcending loneliness, rather than entering a situation and thinking, what if they don't like me? What if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't look the right way? Which is so self-oriented. It's not selfish, but it's self-oriented because you're not expanded beyond that. It changes to, how can I be interested in what this person's saying? And how could I give them something as a friend maybe they've never experienced before, or offer them kindness? And your whole lens of the world stops being centered around the self. And in that state, you are connected. You can't help but be connected. That's a contagious place to exist.
And this is what we talk about in the parenting realm. Like the connection with your child is the most important relationship that you will ever have.
The ultimate service, right?
It is, absolutely. And there's so much
moms.
disconnect. Even we're on a holiday at the moment with my son, and we have been so connected, done everything. I'm going down water slides. We are going to Movie World. We have got all of the things. He's already quite connected to me. He is so much more loving and caring and affectionate. And that's just because we've been on a holiday together for a week. If you put that into your everyday life, you're wondering why your kids are disconnected. Like, connect with them. Take them away for the weekend. Put your phone away. Put your computer away. Work has its place, absolutely. We all know that. We never stop working as startup founders, but it's really important that you have that level of connection to your kids, but you need to have that level of connection to yourself first, and that's where it starts with self-love.
And I know Shefali talks about this when I heard her speak at Mind Valley. Like, this really made me laugh, that her view was parents often make everything their kid does about them, and that they think that it's a reflection of them. And I think within that, sometimes you can lose the perspective of that they're their own person. Like, you have to allow them to be their own, but not take it on like that, because that's going to create a resistance when they're trying to find their own way in the world.
There's a couple of things with this. The first thing is that when we were living in the country, there was a basketball parent screaming at children because they were on the court and they wanted them to win, and I was like, can we just not put this pressure on kids? Like, it's a under 12s grand final or something. Like, let's just give them some breathing space. And the other one is my own experience. Like, I don't get everything right. I probably get more things wrong than I get right, but I do learn, and I can take accountability and say, oh, that's not that great, and I take accountability with my son and apologize. But I would thought we'd move down to Torquay and we'd be like an earth mum, and I'd live near the land and we'd be surfing and everything would be wonderful. My kid is a tech kid. He is so intelligent. He has an engineering brain. He's just so switched on. He was putting batteries in toys when he was 2 years old, and I had to surrender. Like, I had to say, this is not who he is. Stop trying to put him into a box that he doesn't belong. And so I wholeheartedly accept him for every part of who he is now. Like, he's downstairs playing Nintendo right now because he loves it. And it is really important. Now, we want to get to In Truth, because we first met at the Startup Network event when you were on stage talking about this.
It was like a long time ago.
It was a long time. And what you're building is next level. Like, it hasn't really been done before. And how did you get to this place? What was your why for In Truth? Like, what was your moment where you said, this is what the world needs? And then please tell us about it.
The why, honestly, if we go all the way back to the start of the journey, which I just talked you through, it's the same why, but at every juncture, I experienced building a huge grassroots movement. And that was amazing. And then I experienced having a front row seat to how federal budget is distributed. And I got to see impact at that level. And I realized that both of these avenues are powerful ways to catalyze change, but they're not necessarily, neither of those paths are going to lead to permanent, systematic change, 1,000 years from now. And I guess it was that first principles thinking of really just an obsession. I think a lot of founders have this experience. Like, I just wanted to solve that problem, and I wanted to solve it once and for all. And the more I learnt about emotion and the nervous system and what happens when a nervous system is out of balance, which is not talked about really in mainstream psychology at all, by the way, which is where people are going often to learn about themselves, or traditional personal development, both those things are missing proper data. Like, psychology, all the way back to Jung, is a soft science. It wasn't based on, and psychologists hate me for saying that, but it's not a hard science. It wasn't based on actual data. It's subjective reporting. That's why when you get diagnosed with a mental illness, it's against the DSM-5, and it's a questionnaire. It's self-reporting. And I recognize that if we're really going to change this, we need a hard science. We need something that actually translates and understands where this imbalance is coming from in the human system, because it's way beyond the conscious mind. You can't use willpower to understand it. 90% of our behavior is being driven by these autonomic responses in our nervous system, otherwise known as emotion. But no one's ever measured it before. No one's ever tried to translate it and think about how different our understanding of the brain is as a result of building the MRI. We can see the brain now. We understand it on a whole new level. We're able to treat conditions now on a whole new level. But no one had done that for the nervous system. We work with an amazing advisor, shout out to him, Dr. Adam Ghazali. He is the director of a lab at UCSF called Neuroscape. And he's done other very amazing things with his career, including founding an incredible FDA technology called Achille Interactive. But he came out about 10 or so years ago with this incredible real visual called the glass brain. And it was the first time, it was an actual MRI scan, but you could see the neurons firing live. You can YouTube it. It's an incredible visual. And it's showing the highways and the networks in real time in the brain. And when I look at that, I just think I want, in truth, to do the same, but for the nervous system, the glass body. Let's actually create an understanding of these emotional signals that, by the way, are happening millisecond to millisecond. That's how much intelligence the body has. This is how nuanced emotion is. Emotion is not, and again, it would take hours to go deep into, but emotion is not, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm fine.
It's much deeper.
Emotion is an intelligence of the affective system. There's a whole body of science called affective computing, which is about translating these signals in the body, which, considering how much this defines the human experience, I believe is completely under-researched. There are labs, we work with them. UNSW also has an amazing affective computing lab. But in terms of actually translating that into real-world products, things that people can access, use, understand, harness for their own self-awareness in their own life, relationally, in teams, and then I guess my bigger mission, which is to use this data to influence entire systems like healthcare and even national considerations around how a nation of people are actually going based on human data, physiological, emotional human data. No one had done that before. And I just saw it as one of the most profound ways to make a positive impact for 10 generations from now, because we will finally have a way to consider the intrinsic data of a human being in very important global decisions. And I think everyone's experienced even an example of working in a workplace where the well-being of the person is just not considered. Well, why is it not considered? Yeah, your boss might be an asshole, sure. But really, it's a data problem. It's because it is very hard to make that visible and therefore actionable. And this is what In Truth can do for the first time, simply by tapping into readily available data in wearables.
How do you do it? How on earth do you track emotions? Like, it's incredible.
So the signal is there. Like, I think the MRI is a really good analogy for this. So MRI basically took a whole bunch of white noise and then applied a lot of advanced machine learning to translate that white noise into clear images. So there's a signal that's coming through, in our case, beat-to-beat interval sensors, the PPG sensors in wearables, that is looking at heart rate and heart rate variability. And when you break that data down even further, you have raw pulse PPG data, which is the data that's coming in the rawest form from wearables. Just for context, has 300 pieces of information a second. It's a lot of information about the nervous system a second.
Yeah.
But no one's translated it. So we're living in an era of machine learning and AI. I think this is one of the best use cases for AI is, can we take amazing discoveries like this where there is information in the nervous system, but it just hasn't had a translation system, kind of like the dial on a radio that takes it from static noise to an actual radio station. So we apply that machine learning over and over again to train the clear signal until we get an ability to actually read the balance between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. Incredible. And have insight into emotion regulation.
Now, I think about that from a children's perspective, and obviously there's legalities and there's all these things you have to go around with children, but in the future, I look at it as such an incredible thing. If a child, I mean, there's some really not nice things that happen to kids. And what about in a school environment where the teacher's bullying them? One of my teachers in grade 7 was bullying me. If I had a wearable device where my mum could look and say, when she's in the teacher's company and in that class, that, you know, that's where the problems are lying. So how beautiful for parents to be able to have that data around their kids.
Child protection is another big one.
Oof.
And like even the family court system, because I think children are often used as pawns in that system. And like we definitely see pathways over time. Ethical considerations around collecting data on children is something we take very seriously. But if we, in the appropriate way, move through those considerations, I think they're incredible use cases to help bring a voice maybe to spaces where kids don't have a voice.
And it's a deep understanding as well.
Yeah, and hopefully you can use that to parent their children more consciously.
Wow, that's amazing. What you're building is amazing. It's just been launched on the app, on the app.
It has, yep. So you could go to App Store or Play Store, you can download it. Garmin's one of our key partners. We do hope to add to that list with other wearables like Apple Watch, etc. Let's see.
When?
That's a good question for Apple. Maybe you guys can email Apple and say, when are you going to let In Truth tap into your data stream? But look, there's over 1.3, I think, billion people on the planet that are wearing a PPG-based wearable, and that's only going to grow. That's your camera phone, even though it wouldn't be real time. You can put your fingertip on the lens of your camera, and that's a PPG sensor. So this is very accessible technology. It's something that I want at least people to have the option, every person that has a phone, for example, to have the option of this level of understanding.
And not everyone wants to know. Like when it comes to feelings and emotions, they don't want to know. Whereas I'm the type of person, just give it to me. Like just give me everything and I'll process through it. Like I love that. Like I would love the analytics.
Got to sell them on the why.
And it's not for everyone. But as you said, you've giving people the option. It's just like people have Strava. You have the option of downloading Strava if you feel like you want to increase that. People have the option of downloading In Truth to understand themselves better on a deeper level that other people mightn't be able to do that, or counselling or psychologists mightn't be able to get into that deep level. So it's revolutionary what you're doing. It's so profound that you've come from when you were 16 years old to where you are today. What a journey, Nic.
Thank you. I mean, I have an amazing team, so shout out to them as well. They're all geniuses in their own rights. And
that you have employed.
and that our investors have backed. And it's a team effort. But I was saying to you before, we have a team of people that are all very obsessed with solving this problem, and people that have had, some of our research team, a lifetime of experience in cognitive neuroscience and are very passionate about what we're building. And that's what, teamwork makes the dream work. But to talk to this point around not everyone's interested, maybe not everyone thinks they're interested in sitting around and saying I feel sad today or happy today, but I just invite you to understand that what learning this and having insight into this really allows you to do is understand why you do the things that you do. And I think that is the most powerful foundation to build the life that you want. Whatever problem it is that you're trying to solve, maybe you think that you don't care about the relationships in your life. Maybe you're a trader and you don't understand why on some days you just make emotionally impulsive decisions and you don't know how to become aware of that. Maybe you're suffering from some kind of addiction and you want to understand why, you're impulsively participating in that kind of behavior. Understanding your autonomic nervous system is going to provide ways actually making true change in your life that your willpower just can't. And I see so many people, even people that would say, I don't care about emotion, keep feelings away from me. Those same people beat themselves up because they didn't keep a promise to themselves. They didn't get up at 6 a.m. again and go for the run. They made a silly financial decision, whatever. I want people to understand that willpower is 3% of the picture. We've never been taught how to understand our behavior and what's actually driving that behavior.
40 years of habits and patterns and beliefs and different things that you've got to break through.
And one of my practitioners... It's not your
fault.
Exactly. But it is your responsibility,
I like
and that's one of the practitioners I work with says, and I love this, we all have free will in the highest sense, but many people have paralyzed will. and they don't know how to overcome that. And I'm passionate about it because I know how it feels. I've been chained to patterns. When you go through something like an addiction, which I think anorexia is more like an addiction than anything else, I would compulsively lie because I was so afraid to tell people the truth about what I was eating, and I didn't want to be cornered into healing. I was so scared of it. And I know how that feels, and I think many people live in that hell, or that prison, and there's a way to be free. And it isn't going to be through telling yourself for the millionth time, I'm just going to make a different decision today.
I'm good today, yeah. Today's going to be a better day.
Yeah, you got to go deeper. And whether our company can help you do that, or you find a different way to take that journey, it's a freedom that I wish for everyone.
Yeah, and I was actually just talking to a friend the last couple of days, and she has this app, and so it's you can talk to it, and it'll help you understand your emotions and feelings and different people's perspectives on things. And I think that there are different ways. That's like great. In Truth can help you break through these patterns, because it is my belief that most people, let's say most, do want to change. Yeah. They do want to evolve, they do want to grow, but they don't know how. Yeah. They don't know what the work is. Everyone goes, you have to do the work. And they're like, what the hell's the work? I go to work.
Yeah, exactly. I am working.
Yeah, I don't understand what that means. And it is starting with yourself and recognizing patterns and habits and beliefs and different parts inside of you that you're like, oh, I just wish this would change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen.
Nic Gibson, you are wonderful.
Thank you.
You are changing the world, one person at a time. And yeah, I'm just so honoured to be here with you, and I appreciate you and all that you do. And I've learnt so much from you over the years as well. And I'm just, really grateful for you to be here. So thank you for sharing your truth and for being here.
Thank you.
So please have a look at Love Out Loud and In Truth, which are the two big major things that Nic has done. And she's got so many more as well. She's got a book, Love Out Loud. And as you've just heard from the pillars, like there's just so much change and evolution that we can do as humans. And sometimes that means that we have to do the work on ourselves and have so much love and compassion for who we are as human beings as well, because we don't always get it right. But the more that we can just say, hey, I didn't get that, but I'm going to work on myself, or I apologize for that, I'll take accountability and say, oh, I really screwed that up, whoopsie. The more that we can change as humans. So thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here. If you're a parent, carer, or somebody walking alongside children in this wild world, come visit us at Happy Souls Kids, a platform we created to give kids the tools that we never had and offer parents the support that we've so often had to figure out alone. Can you imagine kids had the tools that we now have as adults? That's the work that we do. Until next time, keep showing up, keep feeling deeply, and keep finding your way home to yourself. Love, light, and gratitude, Jay.